important. But now I've got you on video, and I think I've got you on audio.
Sweet. All right, now let me try one more thing. Let's see if my earbud will.
I understand. Take your time.
Okay, can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Well, I'm not hearing you through here, so I'll just shut
Okay,
that off.
well.
That's all right. It can be, you might hear some background noises of children.
Oh, well, that's okay. I have kids too. Understood.
So. All right. Well, thank you for letting us reschedule this and see what's going on here.
Yeah, no problem. I like to start these things by saying that there is no PowerPoint in this discussion. There is no, at the end of this, if you buy now, none of that crazy stuff. It's just two guys in the construction industry having a conversation about what could be. And part of this, the reason that I do these Zooms is because contractors have really good BS meters. And I've been in the construction business a long time. I'm imagining you have too. And so part of this whole thing is for you to decide if I'm full of bull or not, so to speak.
Pretty much.
Yep. So that's what we're doing here. Well, I'm imagining you have questions. I have questions too, such as what have you seen prior to coming into this conversation, because I don't want to repeat myself and, waste your time.
Video, and then I kind of heard your backstory, so then I'm like, okay, this is something I wouldn't mind checking out further, because I know that there's this probably a pretty good opportunity there.
There is. Okay, so you're familiar with what caused GCExperts to happen. We didn't just wake up one morning and say, we're the GCExperts. There was a path that happened that was kind of a happy accident. But here we are, 12 years later, been teaching contractors like you how to bid, buy out, perform, get paid, and move on to the next one in federal contracts. There's lots of neat things that I can teach you in a call like this, but the other side of this thing is that I've got 3 decades of experience and stories and 1,000 federal contracts and $1 billion worth of sales with the government that I can't just, start spewing out. Your head might explode. So I like to usually start with, do you have questions?
I don't know, because I don't know what I don't know.
Okay. Perfectly reasonable. So I'll just kind of jump into the whole spiel of what this is. As you saw in the video, there's 1 million contractors going after $600 billion. On the federal side, it's 25,000. And everything that I'm about to tell you is probably sounds too good to be true. But I'll let you, the viewer, decide whether or not you think it is. These 25,000 registered federal contractors, it is impossible for them to do what the government is trying to get them to do, which is accept awards on $1 billion worth of solicitations a day. So there's significantly less competition in the federal market. That's a real and that's a fact. You do not need any license of any kind. I have done hundreds and hundreds of $1 million worth of construction, including in California, which the people that I talk to from California seem to have the biggest heartache with the idea that you don't need a license to do federal government construction, because they tell me it's so hard in California, I have to go to every single city and get a new license. It's not even that you just get a state license. But I tell guys like you, you can tell me where to go to get a state license to be a contractor in your state, but you can't tell me where to go to get a federal government construction license, because it doesn't exist. The simple matter is, to be a federal contractor, for me to say I am a national federal contractor is just words out of my mouth. What it really means is I got my company registered with sam.gov. The insurance requirements are the same, G&L 1, 2. But what's interesting about the federal government, and this is where I'm going to get up on my handy-dandy whiteboard and go into teaching mode. Our federal government operates under a rule book called the Federal Acquisition Regulations. We call them the FARs, the Federal Acquisition Regulations. It's a top-down rule book. It covers the National Park Service, National Forest Service, Bureau of Land Management, Bureau of Indian Affairs, IRS, CIA, FBI, Army, Navy, Air Force, Environmental Protection Agency, United States Post Office. All the 500 agencies all operate under one rule book, the FARs, the Federal Acquisition Regulations. When I'm talking to people in the construction industry, I like to talk about one specific FAR because it applies to like 90% of what any of us are doing in the federal market. And that is, we're turning in quotes to the government saying, hey, you need work done? We can do it. Simple enough, right? Do you have another device where you can Google something? Because I'm an evidence-based business. And I like to teach from the perspective of, don't take my word for it, look this shit up. I want you to Google a specific FAR, FAR 13.004A. The first thing I want you to do is read me the title.
Legal effect of quotations.
Okay, that in and of itself. Also, notice that you're on a government website. You're not on GCExperts.com. Okay. The legal effect. Now, look, I can tell that you're a successful business person, and I'm not going to try. Might seem like I'm talking down to you, but what I'm really trying to do is just really get it into your head what I'm about to teach you. Okay? So we're starting, it's the legal effect of a quotation, which is weird because in the real world that you operate in, if I give you a quote, is there a law associated with that quote?
No.
No. So now, what I want you to do is read the first sentence of the legal effect of a quotation and stop at the period.
Quotation is not an offer and consequently cannot be accepted by the government in form of a binding contract.
So just stop right there. What I want to establish is that that's different. In other words, if you ask me, Sean, give me a quote to do work, and I sign that quote and I give it to you, and you sign it, what do we now have?
Contract.
But on the government side, what did it say? You give them a quote, they cannot turn it into a contract. That's different.
Yeah.
Okay? Now read the second sentence out loud.
Therefore, issuance by the government of an order in response to the supplier's quotation does not establish a contract.
What that means, now understand, it's the Federal Acquisition Regulations. We're reading the legal effect of a quotation, and this is written by attorneys in Congress. It's legalese, so to speak. But what I'm going to tell you what that actually means is that our government recognizes that everybody within the government doesn't fully understand the law, and someday somebody might take your quote and turn it into a contract, even though the first rule says they can't do that. But they might do that, and if they do that, it's not binding. It's null and void. That's what that second sentence means, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now what I want you to do is read the rest of that paragraph out loud to me.
The order is an offer by the government to the supplier to buy certain supplies or services upon specified terms and conditions. A contract is established when the supplier accepts the offer. Okay,
stop right there. Now understand, in the real world, when we were talking, that I can give you a quote out in your world, and you can turn it into a contract. But the government cannot turn it into a contract. Okay? So how do they turn it into a contract? Well, it sounds weird, but I'm going to tell you how that actually works. I take my quote, and for the purposes of this discussion, we're going to say the National Park Service needs a 200 square foot tiny house built. And so they put it on the street, and now I'm a bidder on it. So I bid $100,000 to build this 200 square foot tiny house, and I turn it into the government. The government cannot turn it into a contract. It says right there in the rules. So what they have to do is they have to offer it back to me. That sounds weird. Here's my quote. Hey, we got your quote. Would you please do this for what you said you would? That's what happens. Now, when they do that, you have 4 options. Number 1, you can accept. Number 2, you can withdraw. Number 3, you can negotiate. And number 4, you can stall for more time. Now, the government has a lot of work to do. They got 1 million buildings across the United States. That all those agencies own buildings, and all those buildings have construction goods and services that they need built. And as this hypothetical example, they need a 200 square foot tiny house built for a park ranger at the Grand Canyon. Okay? I've turned in a quote, and they've decided to offer that back to me. Of these 4 options, what are they trying to get me to do?
Accept.
Absolutely. They want to get it done because she's got 10 jobs on her desk that have come in with bids, and she's trying to get the contractor to accept to meet the requirements of the RFQ, okay? And so she's trying to get me to accept. But I don't do that. What I do is I stall. I say, hey, I'm sorry, I wasn't expecting your call. Can I call you back in 24 to 48 hours? I'm trying to get them off the phone. So now I get them off the phone, and now I'm calling a guy like you. And I'm saying, hey, Craig, my name's Sean. I'm a national federal contractor. I do everything from wind tunnels, water treatment plants to kitchen renovations. I'm calling you today because it looks like you're a contractor in the wherever area, and you could build this 200 square foot tiny house. I'm going to send you over the plans and specifications. When you get those, pick up the phone and call me. I'm already familiar with the job, and I'll walk you through it step by step. Now, the reason that sounds so smooth coming out of my mouth is because I've said it 1,000 times over decades. But the purpose of that script is to get you out of something that happens to you every day. Because if you're a contractor, you answer the phone, and someone says, hey, Craig, give me a bid. Hey, Craig, give me a bid. Hey, Craig, give me... I want to sound different than that guy. And I do sound different than that guy. And you got the plans and specs, and you pick up the phone, you call me, and then I'm saying things like, because the worst thing that a contractor hears on the other end is, give me a number. Give me a number. I need a number right now. And you're like, Jesus Christ, man, I might screw that up, and you're going to hold me accountable to that, and I might lose money. All right? So I don't say those things. I say things to you like, hey, Craig, based on what we just saw, off the cuff, you don't add up every 2x4 inch shingle. Just tell me, looking at that plan and spec, give me a number, some number that if I called you 90 days from today and said, hey, man, we got the job, that we'd be close enough to negotiate something that makes sense. What would that number be? Now I have alleviated all the stress associated with putting a bid together, have I not?
Correct.
Okay, so in this hypothetical situation, tell me how much to build this 200 square foot tiny house.
Well, the thing is, I just did that.
Well, give me a number.
I'm using my calculator.
Don't use a calculator. Craig, give me a number.
Well, I guess I'd be covered at 75 grand.
75 grand. So I turned my bid in. The guy that actually knows how to do shit, because I don't know how to build a tiny house. I don't give a shit. I'm calling a guy that knows how to build a tiny house. He telling me 75 grand. So that's a spread, and I might just call the contracting officer up and say I accept. Give me another number. Give me the high number. 200,000.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 200 grand.
Okay, I turned my bid in for 100 grand. The expert is telling me 200 grand. Clearly I messed up. I call the contracting officer up and I withdraw. Give me another number.
95.
95. I turned it in for 100. He's telling me 95. I might call the contracting officer up and say, hey, suppose I need to change my bid to $135,000. What would happen then? I enter into negotiations with the government. Do you see that Every bid I ever turn in, they can't turn it into a contract. Every bid I ever turn in that they call me, I always have the option that I can withdraw the job, withdraw my bid. Is there any risk to turning in a bid on a federal contract?
Nope.
How many should you be bidding?
Everyone you can.
Remember in the beginning of this conversation, I said all this stuff sounds too good to be true?
Well, I have a little experience on the other side of this.
Other side of what?
Of federal contracting.
Okay, tell me about it.
I'm a retired sergeant first class that was in charge of battalion projects.
Okay.
And we did a lot more stuff international, but I'm familiar with how it works on the government side.
Okay.
But I know civilians accept all this stuff and do this stuff, but I've supervised these contracts as the military liaison, essentially. So I don't think it's BS because I've seen it. I've seen guys. It's just a matter of how do you get it to do it, And I know that because I have a disability rating that would really help in this whole process.
Well, what you just experienced is 10 minutes of over 28 hours of training from guys who have done $1 billion worth of work for our federal government. And oh, by the way, thank you for your service.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. So my thought was on this is I'm sure I could figure it out on my own, but why? If you can get the information you need.
We've already walked the path. I've worked with hundreds of contracting officers. There's, I think, around 10,000 of them. So there's plenty more to work with. But yeah, you're talking to a guy who's done it, boots on the ground, bid the jobs, performed the jobs, bought them out, got them done, moved on to the next one.
Yeah. So, no, I've never heard of this concept, but it makes complete sense. Like, why do the work if you don't have to?
I like you, Craig. Okay, so let's go into the next step of this thing. So the accident happened. We sold $100,000 worth of tickets to a workshop that didn't exist. We created the workshop. We brought the guys into the room. What does that actually look like? It looks exactly like this. This is day one of the workshop, just a clip for you.
And then put the BIG over the opportunities. Big problems equal big opportunities. If somebody needs something and they really need it, they're desperate to get it done, you understand that's the opportunity you're looking for, the need. Okay? You focus on the need. Everything gets focused on the need. What's the need? Do you have a budget? Once I understand the need, I focus on it, I understand it, repeat it back to them. Is there anything else you want to elaborate on? Or anything else I should know? Okay, problems like that usually have a budget associated with it. Can you share that with me? You understand how we go from the need, fully understanding the need, and then to the budget, figuring out what the budget is before we go any further.
And here's some of day two.
In fact, I don't even mind
Costs
telling
were
them.
more than the contract amount, about $1,200. Could you please ask the government's attorney how I can get that $1,200? Because I don't see how I can get it. Now, that's an innocent-sounding question, isn't it? Hey, our costs are more than our contract amount. I don't know how to get that money. Can you ask your attorney? Now, let me tell you something that I know that I didn't finish this sentence for you. Seth calls me up and says, what do I do? And I told him one of two things are going to happen. I said, number one, you're going to get 100% of your contract amount with 0% complete without doing any of the work. I told him that up front. Don't you just love what I can say to people? Okay, two. Or you're going to get a big fat change order.
So now I'm going to show you a clip of day
Don't you love
3.
change orders? Some change orders can be big, fat
Do you
change.
remember me saying that the rule was if there's only one bidder and that bidder is 15% or more above the government estimate, they cannot award the contract? Why does our government, in their infinite wisdom, have that rule? Anybody?
Tax dollars money.
Protects tax dollars, right? Because Sally, what's she trying to do? Get George's job done. He needs it. It's his money. He went and asked for it to fix his fish hatchery. It's sitting on her desk. He needs it done. It's not going to get done until she finds a contractor she can award it to. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So suddenly somebody turns in a bid for $1 million. It's only $100,000 worth of work, and they got all this money left over in the budget. And it's real easy.
So look, for over a decade, we brought guys into that room and taught them for 3 days. It went Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And at some point while we were doing that, I started pulling out video cameras and recording it, not because I knew the pandemic was about to happen, but because I just thought it was cool. I thought it was cool that people were paying us a lot of money to come down and learn from us for 3 days in this workshop that we created. Well, then the pandemic hit, and I went, well, crap, I can't bring people in the room anymore. So I went back to my recordings, and I edited them together into a, quote, super workshop, and posted it up on the internet, and started selling that to people who were interested in going after federal contracts. Well, it turns out people liked that better because they could pause it. They could pick up the phone and call me and say, hey, Sean, you were just talking about this in the workshop. Explain that to me. Break it down for me. And then they could go back. Or they could take their kid to school, hit pause, come back and hit play, instead of being fully enveloped here for 3 days in this room. And so what does that look like when you invest in our program? Well, it looks like this. You give me your money, and then you get access to the training videos. And it's 10 hours the first day, 11 hours the second day, and 7 hours the third day. And then I've done a little supplement update video on things that have changed over time to just bring everything up to modern standards. By the way, as somebody who has been in the federal sector, have you thumbed around in sam.gov much?
No, recently, while I've been trying to figure out what to do, I've been more on USA Jobs trying to get federal contracting jobs.
Okay, let me tell you that everything that you've been looking into are dead ends, and I know that because this doesn't say GC idiots, it says GC experts. And so if you're a GC expert, a guy who's done $1 billion worth of work with the federal government, and you think sam.gov is the scourge of the earth and an example of a path to nowhere, where do I find federal jobs? Well, the answer to that question is I invested $250,000 so that I don't ever have to go to sam.gov. So what did I get for that $250,000? You want to see it?
Sure.
I call it Bid Tracker. I invented it, and it does something really cool. So first of all, it's 50 solicitations per page. And right now, if we go down to the bottom, there's 13 pages. It's constantly and consistently updated by humans. This is all put together. I invest $25,000 a month in this website to make sure it's always accurate and always updated. But when you find a job you're interested in, you just click sync. 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 And then you come down here and you go to page, 5 or whatever. They're all sorted by date. The dates are on the right-hand side, so you know when the job is due. Okay? And you just come in here and you click sync. Sync. Okay? So you sync jobs that you're interested in. And you go to the next page, or you just keep syncing, whatever, to your heart's delight. And then you go to the next page. Now, what do you think is happening in the background as I hit sync?
It's downloading all the data from the website.
You bet your ass it is. So what it's doing is it's creating subdirectories that are named by the date that the job is due. So when you look at this, everything is sorted by the date the job is due. So the name of this folder is March 16. The name of this folder is March 10. And you notice how it just got more folders on it? Because it's syncing in the background. Okay? And then each date has jobs that I clicked sync on. Every single folder has jobs I clicked sync on by that date, the date that it's due. Inside those jobs, what do you think is in there?
Probably what you need to bid the job.
You ever seen anything like that before?
No. I've seen some.
GCExperts.
Closest thing I've seen is just the automated systems other contractors use when they input their price points and data points. I've seen it sync in with other suppliers, so but that's like the end user. That's not what, with what you guys do, that's not what I'd care about. So
What you care about is what I care about. I've just taken it to the highest level it can be taken. Give me the plans and specs and let me put a bid in.
yeah. So you just take that information and have a guesstimate of what it's supposed to be?
Because a guesstimate is exactly the right word, because what do I care? They can't turn it into a contract.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Well, again, this conversation is for you to decide if I'm full of bull or not.
No, based on what I've seen, I was, of course, I see why you did that thing with the, because I never been at sam.gov, and when I just was, I'm like, wow, this website blows.
It blows big time. I invested $250,000 so I don't ever have to go there.
Yeah.
So if this is the path you want to go, I'm the guy. You're already, in this conversation, I have determined that you are my ideal client, but I can't make that decision for you. There is no, if you buy now, I'm not going to call you tomorrow and say, hey, Craig, we had a conversation yesterday, give me $5,000. That's not going to happen. You just have to decide, A, is this the path you want to go? And B, is this the guy you wanted to go down that path with?
Well, I'm definitely considering it, and based on everything else I've seen out there, I don't see why we wouldn't try this. There's no major red flags, let me put it that way.
Yeah, well, I've been doing this a long time, and you won't find negative stuff about me on the internet. Good luck trying. I tell that to everybody who tries. And you spend the hours you want to. Good luck.
Sorry, I just got text in from a customer.
Did you see my indisputable proof page?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Are you familiar with Are you familiar with the term indisputable?
Yes.
Okay. This is my indisputable proof page. What I mean by indisputable is that I've been training guys for a long time. They come into my room and I interview them. Hey, what'd you think of the workshop? And if you hit play on this video, this guy is going to say, oh my God, that training was amazing. His name is Dennis of AMG. You can see his shirt says AMG. But underneath that, you see that he got $4 million in contracts. Well, that could be Photoshop. That's not a picture I drew, but I took a picture of this from another government website. The government website is USASpending.gov. Now what you see here is AMG Construction Company. If you do a search on USASpending.gov, you can find this yourself, but I put a hot link there for you. But you can see that he's gotten actually $4.2 million in contracts. So why the difference? Well, I took this picture a few months ago. And in that few months, he's gotten more federal contracts. But if you listen to the video, it will tell you that it's 2014 when I'm taking this video. Well, when you go here, you can see that he started getting contracts in 2014. Okay? So in other words, the math adds up. It's indisputable proof that this guy went to my workshop, and then he went to my workshop and started getting millions of dollars in federal contracts. Same thing for this video. Same link. This guy got 7 million in contracts. This guy, Carlos of Lantera, he got 34 million in contracts. Moises of ELCI, you can see the ELCI on his shirt in the video. You can see when you play the video, it's 2010. He's gotten 50 million in contracts, and when you click the link, it shows that he's gotten 50 million in contracts. Well, now 53 million in contracts, so he's gotten more since I took the picture. Okay, and you can see that he started getting contracts in 2010. The point is, you go to my workshop, you start getting federal contracts, and it's indisputable.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I agree. I did see that when you mentioned it before. I didn't hear that that's what you called it, but I did see that ticker, and that's what got me looking deeper into the website and into the stuff.
Well, like I said earlier, I'm an evidence-based business. Everything that I do is open. One guy called me up the other day and said, I couldn't get a hold of one of the guys in the video. Is he actually one of your clients? And I went into my merchant account where I take credit card payments every month, and I showed him that guy has spent $40,000 with me over the years and is still a current client. And he went, okay, got it. And I'm happy to do that for you too if you want.
No, I'm not worried about that part of it.
Okay.
So, what do you know about the more debt, like how many percentages and stuff that if I get the disabled veteran status attached to the business, how much does that help?
Look, first of all, the answer is it helps. Okay, how much it helps? I mean, I tell people that my dad and I are just two white guys from Texas, and we were operating in full and open competition for decades, and we did $1 billion worth of work. Could we have done more if we had set-aside statuses? Yes. What we actually did was we found guys that had set-asides, and we were so good at performing federal contracts, we just made 50-50 deals with them. Hey, we'll bid it, we'll buy it out, we'll get it done, and get it paid, and you don't even have to pay us until all the money's in. And we're just going to bid them under your company. And we'll split the profit with you. So maybe someday somebody comes to you with that. Maybe someday you activate your STV or whatever, and you get set-aside contracts that way. And there's some advantages there. Look, all options are on the table. I tell people, I don't care about specifically set-asides. I care about the federal picture as a whole. There's 500 damn jobs on that bid tracker report right now. You could be bidding them, you should be bidding them. If you can get an 8A set-aside and part of the 8A set-aside requires that you be discriminated against, call me on Saturday afternoon. I'll discriminate you. I mean, whatever it takes to get the job done, I'm in,
Well, I'm pretty good at getting people to discriminate me for other reasons.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying.
It might be for cause. I don't know.
I'm just saying, whatever it helps get the deal done, I'm the guy that helps get the deal done.
So what's all this costing?
You give me $5. Are you SAM registered?
No, not yet.
Okay, then you give me $5,000 for the training, and you give my wife $700 to get you registered.
Okay. That's the number I'll have to think about and see how we can pull that off. I just bought a building.
Not my problem, Craig.
I know.
I'll be here tomorrow, I assure you.
I believe that. So you've given me some really good information to look at, and then I can go and speak with the better half for a while and see which way we go with this. But it's very interesting.
Well,
very, very interesting. So, yeah, and I mean, it looks like the training goes over it all about how to make sure you get your contracts with the right pay schedule and all that kind of stuff too. So
I cover
Cash-
all of it. Everything A to Z. A to Z. It's all covered. I mean, look, I'll just tell you this. I said it, I'm going to say it a different way. You are my ideal client, okay? I know how to take you and really launch you into the federal market. It's just a matter of you coming to that conclusion, because once you go through that training, you're going to look back at that $5,000 and go, that was an investment. Now we're ready to launch. You know,
I would assume that I'd probably get all that back and more my first bid.
yeah. So anyway, that's the deal. Take it or leave it. You're not going to be changing my life. I've got plenty of money. I'm eating steak dinner tonight. Don't worry about me. This is all about you.
So, okay. Thank you very much. I'm going to present this all to my wife, and we're going to go from there, and I'll reach out.
All right, I'll be here.
All right, thanks.
Have a good one.
Bye.